Hello, everyone, and welcome to Health and Happiness at Work. This podcast is for busy working adults trying to figure out how to better take care of themselves and others. My name is Katie, and I will be your host. We are here today because adulting is hard and because busy working adults spend more time at work than anywhere else. We're going to have real conversations about real life and, most importantly, swing into action on the biggest opportunities. We're going to talk about ways to layer health, fitness, and wellness directly into your workday so that you feel fantastic. I cannot wait to dive deeper into each of these topics related to health and happiness. You are not alone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Health and Happiness at Work. I am Katie. I am your host, and we are talking today about ways to be well when working from home. Wow, things have changed a lot in the last 53 weeks. That's where we're at right now in this global pandemic. And I watched my workday completely transform overnight, and I anticipate many of you are in the same boat as well. So a little backstory, I work B2B. That means that businesses, employers, hire me for the health and well-being of their employees. This was primarily done on site. I have dozens of team members, and we travel on site to the workplace to be these health and wellness cheerleaders and to layer health and wellness experiences into the workday. By March 2020, that came to a screeching halt because employers were saying to their teams, please don't come back into the office until further notice. We then received on the vendor side notification that vendors were no longer allowed on site. And I watched my entire business model get flipped on its head. If I'm being honest, I felt really sorry for myself for a few weeks. I almost feel guilty saying that, but I know I am entitled to my own feelings. So it's okay for me to share my feelings. I acknowledge that during the pandemic, people are navigating a lot, and some people, it's a life and death situation. And so I don't mean to minimize that at all. I'm just sharing my experience as a small business owner. So I was really sad. I was really sad to watch the workday change and to watch my business get flipped on its head. And I was scared. I was really scared because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I'd worked 14 years to build something, and I started to worry. Lord knows I'm expert level worrier. So I regressed to this worrying about what if, what if all that's been built the last 14 years is about to unravel? Well, newsflash, good news, all is well. We have survived not only one recession, but two, and I'm grateful to share that things are alive and well at Wellness Collective, and I'm in a very different place, and I had to employ all the tactics for health and happiness in the last year to lift myself up from this place. But I mention all of this because you all are likely experiencing a dramatically different workday than a year and a half ago. A lot of people are forecasting that the workday is forever changed, and that the workplace is forever changed, and that large employers will likely not ever be returning to what previously was in terms of having all teams on site at central headquarters. I'm hearing mixed things from employers. Again, I have a pretty wide portfolio of clients and different types of workplace organizations. So some groups will be going back because of the nature of their work, but there is a large group that I anticipate will continue to work from home for a very, very long time. So that brings us to today's topic, ways to be well when working from home. I don't really like working from home. I'm just going to say it. But that's me. And we all get to have our own opinion, and we all get to have our own experience and feelings. I know some people love it. Some people love it. Some people love the ability to throw a load of laundry in and get distracted and have their cats in every Zoom meeting. I don't. I find it to be terribly distracting and hard. And remember, I have 6 cats. That is a lot of cat butt on camera. It's a real problem. And There's something special to me about doing my morning routine and then transitioning to that workplace environment. I just really, really benefit from that. That's what I know about myself. So I'm acknowledging that people likely have different experiences with work from home. I anticipate some people love it. I anticipate some people don't. I also acknowledge that some people are introverts and some people are extroverts. There are people who perhaps don't need a lot of social interaction, and they're really enjoying the space, the uninterrupted work time that work from home offers. That said, extroverts who have different needs are really missing meetings. They are missing the opportunity to gather around the water cooler. They are missing whatever rituals and norms they had with their colleagues and coworkers. They're missing going to happy hour. So people are having different experiences as a result of 2020. I'm also hearing significantly different experiences with time. There are individuals who feel like they have more time than they previously had because that transition time to and from the office is no longer a thing. On the flip side, working parents who are also juggling homeschool and school demands and assignments and so on and so forth, they're at capacity. They're like, what? I should have more time, but I don't because I'm trying to work full time and take care of myself and figure out this virtual learning stuff, which is pretty disorganized at times. And again, people having significantly different experiences with the demands of their time and how much of this resource they have. So anytime I speak, I like to make that call out that it's not one way or the other. There's a variety of experiences out there. I'm going to speak in some generalities. I am going to speak today about work from home specifically. And if you are in a place where you're either choosing to work from home or you're forced to work from home, how do we make the best of it? How do we plan and experience a workday that is slightly healthier and happier than the alternative? I have heard a lot of different testimonials coming off this work from home transition. I've heard people share that they no longer shower in the morning. They just kind of roll out of bed into whatever morning routine and then directly into their workday. They keep their camera off. They don't have to be put together. I hear people say that they're not motivated to exercise. They're comforting themselves with food. Food is so readily available when you work from home that some people are reporting that they graze all day long, maybe out of boredom or comfort. So there's some of that. On the flip side, I am hearing some people say like, wow, I walk my dog 5 times a day. My dog is loving it. My dog will not let me go back to the office. So again, people have different experiences and I will do my best to speak, keeping that in mind. And I might make some general statements that hopefully will work for a wide audience. A couple of my first tips for today are a pretty solid review of things we've spoken about already. This reminder to get outside, this reminder to step into natural light, this reminder to pick up a Happy Light because it's the best $30 you'll ever spend. The reminder to take several deep breaths when you open your inbox so that you are not holding your breath. Taking several deep breaths before you public speak in that Zoom call so that you are thinking clearly and supporting the relaxation response in your body. So some of my tips today are pretty solid review. Other tips are going to be new or different. Let's talk about, again, this idea of some people liking the privacy of work from home, liking that uninterrupted time, and how other people are wrestling with it. Different people need different amounts of social connection to thrive. And so what I would offer up to kick us off today is to notice. Notice what you need from a relationship perspective. If it were a bucket, how full does it need to be for you to feel supported, for you to feel that should you need something, that social support network is there. Again, because of the nature of my work, because I'm hired by employers, because I talk to a wide variety of people, introverts and extroverts, I've heard a lot of different scenarios. And I am hearing even introverts saying, I have to be careful. I have to be careful because I can really isolate myself. So we do need to be concerned about our friends that are more introverted, that they are not alone and that they are not isolated and that they feel cared about. And I've had introverts say to me, I just really have to be careful and I have to watch myself that I don't withdraw, because when I did go to the workplace, it forced some interaction and that was actually good for me. So I'm hearing introverts say that. So check in on your introverted friends. Check in on yourself. If you are someone who is an extrovert and you are missing that connection, there are so many ways we can still stay connected right now. It really just does take intentionality. We spoke about that. Being clear on who can I connect with today? What could it look like? How do we do it safely? And knowing that the beautiful thing about connecting to other people is it is a win-win, right? It is fulfilling a relationship need and a connection need for you. And it is also fulfilling a really powerful connection need for that other person to feel thought of. So with work from home, I invite all of us to think about ways to stay connected in the way that best meets personal needs. The next thing I want to talk about is tuning in to all the cues your body gives you. Ooh, what does she mean by that? Tuning into all of the cues that your body gives you. Let's think about some basic body functions. When you're hungry, your stomach growls. When you're thirsty, your mouth is dry. When you have to go to the bathroom, your gut tells you. When you're tired or sleepy, you yawn. There are a variety of things our body tells us. Feedback. I say the body gives us feedback all day long. And sometimes we tune into that feedback and sometimes we don't. So for individuals who are working from home, like you and I, oftentimes during pandemic times, it is really powerful to tune in to the cues that your body is giving you. Notice when you're having difficulty focusing. That is your brain telling you it's time to take a break and to move your body and to stop sitting. There is a thing called endurance stress, and we'll talk about that. There is evidence that you need to give your brain a break. So difficulty focusing, feeling restless in your physical body, this can all be feedback that it is time to get up and move. If you're feeling lethargic, if you're low on energy, again, get outside, get some fresh air, make sure you're hydrated. If you're feeling aches and pains, guess what? The body doesn't like to be stuck in one position for too long. Those of you 40 and over, you know, if you sit and cross-legged or tuck your leg underneath yourself for 30 minutes too long, your parts don't move like you want them to. It doesn't have to be that way. Our parts need to move. Your body needs to move all day long. There's a Chinese proverb that says you're as old as your spine. Our spine needs to move. All of our joints need to move. And it's counterintuitive, right? Because if you have aches and pains, you might say, oh, I shouldn't move. No, we need to figure out how to get you moving in a way that works for you, trusting that it will improve the aches and pains and discomfort. And the more we can keep our body in motion, the better. An object in motion stays in motion. So tune into when your body needs to move. Tune into when your body needs to eat and hydrate. Tune into when your body and brain need a break and it's time to step away. Those of us that are professional sitters, it's okay to get up and move and take a break, and it'll actually increase performance long term. So speaking of physical activity, we've touched on it a few different times for a few different reasons. I'm going to shed a slightly different light today because, again, I think busy working adults sometimes have a hard time stepping away from the work because there's all this self-talk around, I should do this and I should do that, and what will my boss think if I'm not there and I'm stepping away to do this or that or the other. There's a lot of pressure, I think, for people to stay chained to their work and not take the breaks that are needed. So oftentimes people are working through lunch, people are working through 5, 6 o'clock. Oh, speaking of, in talking to people during the pandemic, people are working crazy hours. I'm hearing people say, like, hey, I used to end my workday at 5, but now I'm working till 6 or 7. So people are working longer hours. We're going to talk about transition times, but people are working longer hours because they're at home. They don't have to get in their car and move somewhere. And so they're kind of always on. And this is working against our health, not for our health. So when it comes to physical activity, my coaching tip for today is to have a mindset of accumulating minutes of physical activity. Rather than thinking, oh, it has to be 60 minutes, it has to be 45 minutes, it has to look like this or like that. No, the goal is to accumulate as many minutes of activity as you can throughout the day. That might be 10 minutes in the morning, 10, 15 minutes at lunch, 10, 15 minutes in the evening time. You're building a habit of moving more, and that's the most important thing. It doesn't have to look a certain way for it to count. And what we know is that accumulated physical activity has the same benefit as that which is done consecutively. So, accumulation for the win. In our segment on maximizing the morning, we talked about having some type of way to express yourself. People express themselves in different ways. For some people, it's writing. For some people, it's music. For some people, it's movement or arts. For some people, it's woodworking. I would invite you to find a way to express yourself during the workday. This stuff doesn't have to be reserved for leisure time. You can use your lunch hour however you want. You can lean into creative projects even in the workday. So look for ways that might be supportive to you to express yourself. It can be both inspiring and therapeutic. And anything that is hands-on is going to be especially beneficial when you are in need of a digital detox. So earlier I mentioned this idea of endurance stress. There is evidence that performance starts to diminish after about 90 minutes of high-intensity work. This can be high-intensity work from an athletic perspective, or this can be high-intensity work from a workplace perspective. Say you're writing, say you're speaking, say you're strategizing. There's evidence that your brain needs a break every 90 minutes. Without that break, something called endurance stress starts to set in, and productivity and performance starts to diminish. So we live in this culture and in this time when we praise multitasking. Oh, so-and-so can do 5 things at once. Isn't that great? Well, no, it's really not great, because the second you try to do more than one thing at a time, something else has got to give. There's really no benefit to multitasking. There's benefit to monotasking, but we don't praise that. And I'm kind of on a mission to change that, because it supports this idea of mindfulness as well. So we get to monotask. We get to focus on one thing at a time, and we get to take a break after 90 minutes, knowing that performance starts to diminish when we power on through. So finding moments to take a break. This doesn't have to be a 50-minute break. I'm talking a 5-minute break. Let yourself have breaks. I don't know where this came from, but I fall into it. Other people fall into it, where we eat at our desk. We don't take a break. Breaks get to happen. And, maybe you're laughing at this right now and saying, I take all the breaks. I need to get more focused. So if you're someone who's an expert at taking breaks, then we need to work on something else. But if you're the person who's not taking breaks, you're not stepping outside into nature, you're not eating away from your desk, you're not taking a pause every 90 minutes, and you're trying to do all the things at once, no wonder you feel really tapped out by the end of the day. So we just talked about being intentional with taking breaks, especially every 90 minutes or so that your brain and your body can have that moment of reprieve. On the flip side, how do we get into flow? How do we get into these focused work time blocks where we are completely engaged, we are completely on? There is a term in psychology called flow, and I think flow is fascinating. So getting in the flow is a real thing. Getting into flow is characterized by being completely engaged in the activity at hand. Being in flow is also characterized by having a loss of a sense of time. When people are in flow, whether they're running or writing or editing a podcast, there's no sense of time. It involves being completely immersed and completely content in the moment. It's also thought that when the task at hand is slightly challenging, it makes it interesting. And it's also thought that the person will get into flow because they have the skills at hand to tackle those small challenges. If something's not slightly challenging, it can be boring. So generally when we get into flow, there's some challenge at hand, but we have the skills to tackle that challenge. I invite you to find when you get into flow and when you don't. I have noticed now that I've been writing every single day, I have noticed that I'm able to get into flow when I do certain things, certain behaviors, certain rituals. I'm not able to get into flow when my kids interrupt me every 5 seconds and say they're hungry. Anybody else have that situation? You make a snack and then they need second lunch, and then you make a snack and they need 3 dinners. Yeah. So it can be hard to get into flow. So I would look at what practices support you in getting into flow or not. I would also invite you to look at what type of work tends to put you in flow. I anticipate whatever your strengths are. If you were to look at your top 5 strengths, I anticipate that you were to get into flow on tasks that involve your strengths. I would also anticipate you get into flow on tasks that you're passionate about. And passion is one of my hands down favorite things to talk about. So we get to circle back on that. Finding flow. Another recurring theme I am hearing from individuals who now work from home and previously didn't is this challenge of not having transitional moments or transition time in the day. So for those who worked 9 to 5 and reported somewhere for work, it was very different than work from home. We had that moment where the commute to work happened. We had the moment where we went out to lunch maybe with some coworkers, or we went to happy hour. We had the moment that was the transition or commute home. And all of a sudden, the workday is a complete blur. People roll out of bed and into their work chair. And again, there's no transition time. So a few things are happening, a few things that I'm seeing. People are missing this transition time. Couples don't have a break from one another. They're working from home together. So, couples and kids and everybody's there trying to do their work, and there's no boundaries. There's no time where you are by yourself as you transition from the workday to the home life. So I think the biggest opportunity here is to create a transition so that you are not working until 7 or 8 o'clock at night because there's a blur. There's opportunities to create some healthy boundaries, and there's opportunities to create transitions that you do, even when working from home, that signal to your body and your brain, now I'm starting my workday, now I'm ending my workday. And this is what that looks like. I was speaking to a workplace mid-pandemic, and we were talking about sleep. We were talking about establishing that healthy sleep-wake schedule with some recurrence. We were talking about having a healthy morning routine, things that we've spoken about in the podcast thus far. And I got a really funny email afterwards where the woman said, "Thank you. Thank you, thank you." She said, the second we got done with the presentation today, she said, guess what? I took a shower and I put in my contacts and I feel like a whole new woman. And so what she shared with me is that because of the pandemic, because there weren't transition times in the day, because there weren't boundaries, because there weren't routines for how we go from leisure time to work time, she said, here I am in my pajamas, in my glasses, and I don't feel great. And I discovered that for myself as well. I figured out really early on that I had to take a shower. I had to do my face like I normally would. I had to put on clothes that made me feel good because it was normal. It felt normal when the rest of the world didn't. So these are some variables that we can control, that we can choose to do differently so that even when working from home, it feels like our routine when we did go to the office. And maybe you're listening to this and saying, nope, I like my pajamas and my bed head and my glasses and my slippers and whatever. That's fine. You do you. But if you're someone who's saying work from home is not working for me, I can't get going in the morning, I don't have a routine, I don't feel like I'm at my best. I don't want to turn on my camera. I don't want to engage. I'm talking to you. There are things we can do to shape the day so it feels like it's working for you. All right, so I think just one more concept here to wrap up our time together, and this is an invitation to notice triggers. What are triggers? Triggers are things that push your buttons. We all have them, and we have a choice, right? We can choose to not care. We can choose to let it go, whatever it is that's ruffling our feathers, or we can acknowledge, hey, that's a trigger for me. I spend a good part of my year speaking and coaching on stress and healthy coping, and stress and resiliency have and will continue to be hot topics in the workplace. So with that, we oftentimes talk about triggers. Inevitably, we all have them, and that's okay. We can work toward reframing some things. We can work toward not caring so much about certain things and kind of letting things roll off. That idea of not sweating the small stuff, because there's big stuff and there's small stuff. And sometimes with the small stuff, we can say to ourselves, you know what? I'm just going to let that go because I need to protect my energy and I need to protect my stress. But sometimes there are other triggers, and maybe they're a little harder to navigate, and maybe you're noticing a pattern and they're more frequent. I notice for me, occasionally, I will get a communication that's kind of triggering. Maybe it's a text message, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a phone call. What's the worst is when you get a text or a message that says, hey, we need to talk, right? Aren't those the worst? Because your brain catastrophizes. It's a funny word. Your brain goes to this place of, oh no. Again, it's the what if game. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I'm losing my job? What if they said I'm doing a bad job? What if somebody's upset with me? What if I said the wrong thing? Your brain goes all these places. So that might be a trigger for you, not having enough information. So where I'm headed with this is with work from home, we can notice triggers, notice things in the inbox that are causing distress or causing a trigger for you, noticing things in your environment that are a trigger. Heck, sometimes it's the snack pantry that's a trigger. So we can look for things within the workday that are triggering behaviors that don't align with what we want or our goals, and start to influence those triggers. For me, when I get that text message or email that's a little triggering, maybe I feel defensive, maybe I feel angry, I have to tell myself to pause. And sometimes the pause is 5 minutes. Sometimes the pause is 5 hours. And sometimes, in extreme cases, the pause is 5 days. Because it's like, you know what? I'm not ready to respond to that. Because if I do, I don't think it's going to help the outcome. I actually think it might make it worse. So that is one tactic that I encourage, is the pause, especially if there's something triggering in your inbox. Another tactic I would offer up with triggers, especially if something is triggering that catastrophic thought, is to ask clarifying questions. Hey, sure, I'd love to hop on a call later today. How can I be prepared for the call? Ask some type of open-ended question that is going to elicit more information so that you are controlling what you can. You're seeking information and not making up your own story. We're really good at making up our own stories, aren't we? We could do a whole episode on that. So I invite you to look at some of these tactics, look at your triggers. We can learn a lot from our current day so that we can shape a day, we can shape a work from home that feels good and right. And I could go on and on and on, but we're going to call it a wrap for today. And I cannot wait to circle back with you for episode 5. I'll see you soon.